Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we're going to look at a new topic in STA 333, which is data visualization using R. So in this topic, we will look at how to plot data for scatter diagram, line chart, box plot, bar plot, and histogram. Right. So before we start with our lecture, so make sure you have all the data set inside your R environment. So the data set can be you can get the data set from my website under R programming, data intro, and you click download here. Right. So under download here, so you will get a data set. So there are a lot of data set inside the folder. So make sure you set your working directory to folder number 4, which is data summarization, and into data folder. Right. Make sure your current working directory is at data summarization and data folder. So if you look at the directory in the folder, you will get basically 8 data set, right, which is bike lanes, email, probably survey, TB incidents, and youth tobacco. So we will use 3 data set from this folder, which is probably TB incidents .excel file, and youth tobacco survey YTS data.csv file. And most of the time we will use a ready-made dataset, which is empty car dataset, pressure dataset, air quality dataset, and these 3 dataset is you can obtain these 3 dataset from my folder. Right. So empty car, pressure, and air quality is a built-in dataset, which is a ready-made dataset from R. If you can type data, so you can see this is the ready-made dataset available in R environment, right? So empty car, air pressure, air quality is already inside the R environment. So if you can look at the head of empty car, so basically we have in the empty car we have a 32 observation, right? Sorry. We have 32 observation and 11 variables, right? So for air pressure, so we have 19 observation and 2 variables. If you look at the head of pressure, so we have temperature and pressure. For air quality, so we have 153 observation and 6 variable. Head air quality. So we have ozone, solar, wind, temperature, and so on. Right. For others data set, you can obtain from my folder. Right. So for TB data set, first we need to load the library read Excel, right? Because this is an Excel format. So I'm using TB read underscore Excel and TB underscore incidents dot XLSX. So I need to call this one first, right? And TB, we have basically 208 observation and 19 variables. Let's say we look at the names of TB, right? So the first variable name is TB incidents all form per 100,000 population per year. This is such a long name for a variable, and then followed by year, right? So since the first variable is very long name, so I am trying to rename the first variable to country, right? Because if you look at head TB, it's the first variable represent country, right? So I'm using a deployer package using a rename function, right? to rename the first variable to country, right? So first you need to call library replier and rename variable, the first variable to country, and it will change for you, right? And the third variable, the third data set that we're going to use is YTS data set, right? YTS data set. So YTS data set is a Youth Tobacco Survey YTS data .csv. This data set you can obtain from my folder, right? So it's a number 8 file, right? So you need to call library read R. So because I'm using read underscore SAV, right? If you want to use read.csv, then it's okay lah, right? So I'm storing the data set into YTS object, right? So in YTS object, basically we have 9,794 observation and 31 variables, right? If you want to know, in this data set, there is a lot of missing data, right? So I'm going to select some of the variable to be used, which is there are no contain any missing value, right? So I'm using measure equal to smoking status, gender equal to overall, response equal to current, and I'm selecting year, location, and data value. I'm using a dplyr method, right? So if you look at a sub YTS, it will present to you year, location, and data value. Right. In this selected data set, we have 419 observation and 3 variables. Right. So now let's begin with data visualization. So in this lecture, I am showing you how to create a graph using base package, right? I'm not using any library, a special library such as Lattice or ggplot or plotly. I'm just showing you how to plot data using a base package. It's a built-in package. So the first function that we're going to look at is plot function, right? The second one is Boxplot, right? The third one is histogram, and the last one is pair, right? Which is we want to look at the correlation, the correlation matrix. So plot function is designed for scatter diagram and line chart, right? So if you want to plot a scatter diagram or line chart, you can use plot function. Boxplot is for boxplot, obviously for boxplot. And HIST is a function for histogram, and pair is a correlation matrix, right? So another one is we're going to look at BarPlot. This is to construct a simple bar chart, right? Are you okay? All right. So now let's begin with the first function, which is scatter diagram. Scatter diagram, scatter plot is the same name, right? So we are using mtcar dataset, mtcar dataset to show you how we're going to plot a scatter diagram, right? So you need to understand first, to plot a scatter diagram, the requirement is x-axis and y-axis should be numerical. If you have a categorical variable, it will not show a meaningful diagram, right? Because the objective of scatter diagram, we want to see the relationship between two variable, two continuous random variable, right? Let's say I want to plot MPG, mile per gallon, and weight of the car, right? So before we start, let's look at the documentation of the plot function, right? Just type question mark plot. So it will show you the documentation of the plot function. So the description is generic function for plotting of R object. So for simple scatter plot, and then you can also plot a line graph, right? The function, how to use a function. First, you need to call the function name and bracket, start with X variable, right? The variable that you want it to be on X axis, followed by Y axis, right? And then followed by this argument lah. So X is the variable that you want to plot for X axis. Y is the variable you want to plot in Y axis, right? So to plot scatter diagram for MPG and weight, right? So you just type plot empty cars. So X axis, I'm going to put weight on X axis and mile per gallon, and on Y axis, right? Just hit enter for this one. It will show you the scatter diagram, right? Right. So this is just a basic scatter diagram. You can add title and axis title for the graph by adding main argument for title, and then X label for X axis title, and then Y lab for Y axis title. Right. Let's look at this one. Plot empty cars weight, empty cars MPG. Then I'm going to put the title for the graph, main. So the scatter diagram showing mile per gallon, MPG, and weight of the car, right? So if we just put main, it will appear the title of the graph, right? If you follow by xlab, let's say xlab means the title for the car, for the x-axis, which is weight of the car, right? So it will change the axis title for weight, for x-axis. If you put y lab, this is mile per gallon, right? So it will change the title for y-axis, right? So this is very simple. So if you notice in the scatter diagram, the point in the scatter diagram by default is a circle point, right? This is a circle point. You can changing the circle point by using PCH argument. Right. So let's say I just copy and put PCH equal to 2, right? So it will change the point to triangle, right? If you want to see the type of PCH available, right, you can Google PCH in plot in R. PCH plot in R. Wait. So look at this one. So there are 25. There are many, right? We have starting from 0 until the end. So for 0 is a triangle, 1 is circle, 2 is triangle, plus and so on lah. So you can change by using the number. Let's say 3 change to plus, right? So this is one of the argument that you can use in plotting a scatter diagram. Let's say you want to make let's say I change this one to 2, right? So this is a triangle. Let's say you want to make the data point thicker, right? So we're going to use argument names LWD, right? So LWD, let's say I copy this one again, right? Then I add LWD equal to 2, right? It means that it will add some thickness of the data point, right? You can also plotting the scatter diagram with color, right? So if you want to plot add some colors in the scatter diagram, we just add color argument, color equal to some value, which is red or yellow or something some value. Right, let's say I put color equal to red. So it will change the data point to red color, right? So if you want to change to blue, you just type blue. If you want to have some specific color, you can go to HTML color codes, right? HTML color codes. Let's say I want to change it to let's say orange, right? So I just copy the code hex color code to color argument, right? So it will change accordingly, right? So that's how we draw a scatter diagram. And another thing that you can do in a scatter diagram using R, you can plotting scatter diagram by group, color by group. So sometimes in analysis, you want to know, let's say this is red. You want to know which in the first point, your first three, right? First three weight. What is the group? Right. Let's say this is having a car having cylinder 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, right? Let's say if you want to group this one by color, you need to have a categorical variable. So in data set empty car, we have CYL, which is this is a categorical data. We have 4, 6, and 8 cylinders. So I want to color the scatter diagram based on this group, right? So I just need to change instead of color all point to red, right? I just change it to the group based on categorical data, empty car based on CYL, right? So it will change the color based on the group, right? Okay, so another function that you can use in plotting, right, not limited to scatter diagram, you can add line to indicate your threshold, right? Sometimes you want to emphasize some threshold in the plotting. Like say you want to make it line at 20 miles per gallon 20, right? So you just add line, horizontal line equal to 20, right? With the color equal to, let's say I put color red color. So it will add another line, right, to indicate more than you can differentiate the mile per gallon more than 20 and less than 20, right? This is H represent horizontal, and let's say you want to add vertical line, add line V equal to, let's say 3.5. I want to create a new line, vertical line 3.5, right? So color equal to blue. So it will create a line, right? So this is how we create a scatter diagram, right? So now the next diagram that I want to show to you is a line chart, right? In line chart, right? If you look at the documentation of plot, right? So we have some argument here. The argument that we can plot is type. Now you can add type. So type, if type equal to P, means that we want to create a scatter diagram. It's a point. Just you're going to show you a point, right? If type equal to L, this is how we want to create a line, right? If L equal to B, means we want point and line together, right? For example, let's say we look at data pressure, right? Pressure is a built-in data set, right? So let's say we look at head of pressure. So we have two variables, temperature and pressure. So I want to plot pressure, right, on y-axis and temperature on x-axis. So let's say I'm using plot pressure. So the first variable should be x-axis, which is temperature. Another variable is pressure, which is on y-axis, right? So we need to add type. If you don't add type, so it will appear a data point, right? So you need to add type equal to L, right? So it will show you the it will show you a line chart, right? Okay, so this is a line chart. So if you change type equal to L, then it will draw for you a line chart. So if you want line together with point, so you just change type equal to B, right? And of course, in line chart, you can also input a title for the graph, axis title, right? By using main, X lab, and Y lab, right? For example, let's say I just put this one, B. Say I want to create a name, title for the graph. Main. This is a line chart, right? For temperature and pressure, right? X lab equal to temperature. Oops. Temperature. And then for Y lab equal to pressure, right? So it will change the title accordingly. So remember, just now I already show you LWD means that to change the thickness of the line, right? You can also change the color. You can put the color equal to rainbow. For example, rainbow equal to 4. So it will change the color to rainbow, right? So this is how we create a line chart, right? So the next graph that I'm going to show you is a bar chart, right? So for a bar chart, we are not going to use of plot function. We're going to use BarPlot function, right? So let's say I'm going to plot a bar chart for a number of cylinder. Remember, in empty cars, we have categorical data, which is number of cylinder. If you table this one, empty cars, cylinder, so you will get 4, 6, and 8, right? So if you look at the data set, right, head, empty cars, cylinder, right? So the data set is not and the data set is not an aggregate data, right? If you plot a bar plot, you want to plot a bar graph using non-aggregate data, so it will appear like this: bar plot, empty cars, CYL, right? So it will appear like this, right? This is not a correct bar plot. So if you want to use bar plot, you need to make sure we have the data set is an aggregate data set. So to get the aggregate data set means that we want to know, we want the each category having the frequency, right? So we need to plot bar plot table empty cars CYL. So you will get a simple bar chart, right? As in bar plot, you can also add title and axis title using main and xlab and ylab. Right. So for example, let's say I just copy this one, right? I put xlab equal to x label means number type of cylinder, right? Let's say ylab is number of car, and the title main equal to bar chart showing distribution of CYL. So it will change accordingly. And you can also add colors, right? You can also add colors to the bar chart, right? Let's say color equal to, let's say, pink color, right? It will change to pink color. If you don't like the bar chart to have border, you can change border equal to NA, so it will remove the border for each bar, right? And if you want to change color more than one color, let's say the first bar should be a red color, the second bar yellow, and third bar is blue, so you can specify the color accordingly. Let's say this is red, yellow, and blue, so it will change accordingly, right? So there are a lot of color palettes that you can choose. If you don't like this one, you can change to rainbow. Let's say rainbow 4, so it will change. Oops, rainbow, right? Can change to rainbow 5. Oops. So you can choose by yourself, right? Or if you already have a color palette, like say you're creating color palette by your own, let's say C, using color rampage, ramp palette, right? So this one is colors equal to C from light blue to light green, right? So let's say you want to choose only 3 color, right? So then you can change the color to Paul. So it will change accordingly, right? So this one basically should be the first one, right? Okay. So far, we already look at how to create a scatter diagram, line chart, and bar chart. Right. So now, next plot that I'm going to show you is how to create a histogram. Histogram. In creating histogram, right? So it's actually histogram is designed for a quantitative variable, but you can also combine it with the categorical variable, right? But you need to understand histogram designed for continuous variable, And the purpose of histogram is to see the distribution of the data set, right? So we're going to use HIST function. Let's say I'm going to show you a histogram of empty cars, MPG, right? So it will show you, it will draw a histogram for MPG, right? Okay. So in histogram, we have another argument which is break, right? Break means how many class you want to break in the data set. Remember in STA 111, you already learned how to break a continuous data to a categorical data. So then you need to determine how many class you want to break, right? Using a search rule or another rule, log 2 divided by log 10, so on, right? So let's say you want to break by 20, so it will break the data set into 20. If you want to break to 10, it will break to 10. Let's say we look at a nice data set. Let's say I'm going to generate a new data set, which is BMI R norm equal, let's say 1000 data, right? With mean equal to 2.4 and standard deviation equal to 2.2, right? So then I want to plot histogram BMI. So it will get like this. If I break the histogram by 20, right? So it will break to by 20, right? So the representation of histogram depend on how many class you want to break, right? In SPSS, they already calculate the number of class, the ideal number of class to break, right? Okay, this is the histogram based on frequency. If you want the histogram based on density, just add another argument, which is frequency equal to force. So it will change the y-axis to density, right? So it depends which measure you want to use, right? So the next graph that I'm going to show you is a box plot. So box plot, same as histogram, is actually designed for a continuous data set, right? And then is actually the purpose of the box plot is same as histogram. We want to see the shape of distribution, and we want to know whether there is a outlier of the data set, right? So in box plot, we're going to use box plot function, right? So let's say I want to create a box plot for MPG, empty cars, MPG. So it will show you the box plot for MPG, right? So sometimes you want to, if you do a independent sample t-test or one-way ANOVA, you need to know the normality by group, right? So sometimes you want to break the data set into by group. So you don't need to do a select cases anymore. You can use box plot straight away, right? So box plot by group, right? So let's say box plot empty cars MPG, and then I want to separate it by group. So which is empty cars CYL. So it will separate it by group, right? Okay. So I think for box plot, same as plot and others plotting that I've already showed to you. You can also add title by using main, right? This is box plot. So it will appear the title for the box plot, right? So if you want the box plot to be presented in horizontal, you just type horizontal equal to true. So it will change the order of the presentation or the layout for the box plot, right? Right. The next plot that I'm going to show you is a correlation matrix. So for correlation metric means that we want to display a data set based on the correlation, based on each variable. You want to know the relationship of independent variables. So let's say for data TB, right? So I have year 1990 until year 1994 and so on, right, until 2007. So I want to know the relationship or the scatter diagram or the correlation matrix for year 1990 until year 1994, right? So I just type pair TB. This is the data set I'm going to select from year from variable number 2 until variable number 5, for example, right? So it will show the correlation matrix for each variable for year 1990 and year 1991. This is a positive correlation and so on, right? So you can change, this is a scatter diagram. You can change the point PCH equal to 2. So it will change the point to triangle and so on, right? You can also add the title for the graph, main equal to this is correlation matrix, right? So by then I already finished what I'm going to I want to show it to you, use plotting using a bar graph, using base package, right? So this is just a base package and very basic knowledge that you need to know to plot a graph, right? So if you like to plot a graph, basically you need to plot a graph for your project and for your presentation, right? So basically you need to plot a nice graph and take people attention, right? So you need to add colors, you need to make sure the shape is very good, right? So I think that's all. Maybe on the next lecture we will in touch on ggplot package, right, which is very robust package and it have a very good data presentation about graph presentation, right? So I think that's all, right? Soalan tak banyak lah, sikit lah. Sempat lah habis 2 jam tu. Kalau tak study tak sempat habis lah 2 jam. So you need to make sure you understand deployer package, how to select, filter, group by, and then how to make a graph, right? How to import and export data. Right. Okay. If you don't have a question, yup. Boxplot macam mana boleh jadi 3? So boxplot, you see, the first argument and the first function I use boxplot function. So for the boxplot, if I input one variable, this is a continuous variable. Remember, boxplot is designed for continuous variable, right? So if you put continuous variable, it will be only one boxplot for the whole data, right? So sometimes in independent sample t-test, in one-way ANOVA, we want to see the normality of the data based on group, right? So that's why we are plotting the box plot based on group. Means that for this example, I am using CYL as a group. So I want to divide the box plot to 3 groups, right? First is, for example, table, empty cars, CYL. So we have 3 groups. First group is 4 cylinder, second group is 6 cylinder, and third group is 8 cylinder. So I want MPG to be displayed for 4, 6, and 8. So the first argument it should be numerical. This is the box plot that I want to make. I want to divide this box plot to group. So followed by tilde and the categorical data, right? So if you put like this, right, box plot, empty cars, MPG, this is a continuous data followed by categorical data, CYL. This CYL is the categorical data. Then we will divide the box plot for MPG based on group number 4, group number 6, and group number 8. Right. Hope that answered the question. Any other question? Ada soalan lain? Histogram. Where is histogram? Yep. Histogram, by default, if you look at the documentation, help document, histogram, right? So you will see the argument for histogram is only numerical data, which is X, right? And followed by some argument. So argument yang dia letak adalah frequency equal to null and break based on stage rule. Still remember stage rule? So that's why in histogram in SPS in R, they break the category to based on stage rule, right? So this is by default. And frequency equal to null. Frequency means your y axis, right? So let's say I copy this one. Y axis is based on frequency, right? If you don't specify anything, right? So if you specify frequency equal to false, maksudnya it will not display frequency anymore on y axis. It will display, instead of frequency, it will display a probability value from 0 until 1. So it will display the density value, right? Hope that answer the question. Ada soalan lain? You can voice up if you have a question.
Biasa tu apa? Dia kan lupa.
So in R, F means false, F means false, T means true, right? So this is a short form for false lah. If you like to write for full sentence, then you can write for full sentence. Right, it's the same concept. Any questions so far? Ada soalan lain?
Funny.
So if you don't have a question, then we will meet on next week, right? So next week we will you should be ready for test number 1, and make sure you do a lot of exercise. Try to get familiar with all the codes that I already teach you, right? So not limit to my lecture, right? So you need to do some searching how to make graph prettier and transform do a transformation of the method, right? Right. So if you don't have a question, so we should end here, right? Okay, assalamualaikum.